America's Got Talent star Nightbird has died. The Zanesville native had been battling cancer for quite some time.
Every time someone stepped onto that stage, it felt like the start of something bigger. But for some, it became something else entirely. For nearly 2 decades, America's Got Talent has turned unknown performers into unforgettable moments. But not every story ended the way it began. Some contestants found lasting success. Others faced losses, sudden turns, and outcomes no one watching could have predicted. So, what really happened to some of the most memorable faces from America's Got Talent? And which stories took a direction nobody expected? Join us as we count down the most shocking and emotional stories from America's Got Talent. Number 10. Bernie Goer. Bernie Goer appeared in the very first season of America's Got Talent back in 2006, which means he was there at the very beginning of something that would run for 2 decades. He performed a comedic stripper routine to the song She Bangs and got the judges laughing before being eliminated in the early rounds with 2 yes votes. He was a fun, memorable presence from the show's debut season, the kind of act that stuck in people's minds precisely because it was so committed to being exactly what it was. What makes his story genuinely sad is the timeline. Bernie Goer appeared on America's Got Talent in 2006. He passed away in 2007 from prostate cancer, just 1 year after his appearance on the show. He was gone before the second season had even finished airing. Most viewers who watched the first season had moved on to the new episodes without knowing that one of the faces from the debut had already died. He left before the show he appeared in had any idea what it was going to become. The show that started with him would go on for nearly 20 years. Bernie did not get to see any of it. The very first season of the show lost one of its own within a year of airing. Moving forward in our countdown, the next story involves a man who actually won the whole competition and still could not outrun the health problems that would eventually catch up to him. Number 9. Neil E. Boyd, Season 3 winner. Neil E. Boyd was not what anyone expected when they saw him walk out onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2008. He was a big man from Scott County, Missouri, who had been working as an insurance salesman. He looked like someone you might see at your local grocery store. And then he opened his mouth and sang, and the audience was not ready for what came out. His voice was an enormous, full classical tenor. He sang operatic pieces with a power and a warmth that had the judges immediately invested. He won the 3rd season of America's Got Talent and took home the $1 million prize. The whole country had voted for him. What followed the win was not the sustained career that everyone hoped for. Neil released an album called My American Dream in 2009, and it had moments that showed just how gifted he was. But the music industry is difficult to navigate even with a show victory behind you. And Neil's life after the show was not the smooth upward trajectory that the win seemed to promise. He died in 2018 at the age of 42 from heart failure, kidney failure, and liver disease. His doctors attributed the severity of those conditions partly to his weight. He was 42 years old. He had won one of the biggest talent competitions in American television history, and he died a decade later before he ever got to fully build on what that win was supposed to mean. Paul Potts, the British opera singer who had won the first series of Britain's Got Talent, dedicated a performance to Neil during the AGT Champion Series in 2019. That tribute said everything about the kind of impression Neil E. Boyd left everyone who had heard him sing. Our countdown moves ahead now to a man who was not a contestant at all, but a judge, and whose exit from the show left it feeling noticeably quieter and less interesting in ways that are hard to fully articulate even years later. Number 8. David Hasselhoff, original judge. David Hasselhoff was one of the 3 original judges when America's Got Talent launched in 2006. He was sitting on that panel alongside Brandy and Piers Morgan when the whole thing began. At that point in his career, David was one of the most recognizable faces on Earth. Genuinely famous in a way that crossed national borders in ways most American celebrities never achieve. Baywatch had made him a phenomenon in Europe in ways that defied easy explanation. Knight Rider had made him a legend to a generation of viewers. He brought a specific energy to the panel, enthusiastic and emotional and genuinely moved by talent in a way that read as completely sincere. He left the show after season 4. The official explanation at the time was that he was departing to focus on his own A&E reality show, The Hasselhoffs, which followed him as he helped his daughters launch their music careers. That show aired 2 episodes before it was canceled, which tells its own story. He was replaced by Howie Mandel for season 5, and the transition happened with a speed that suggested it was not entirely his own choice. David himself has spoken in interviews since then about the experience of leaving AGT in terms that suggest it was not uncomplicated. His personal life in the years surrounding his departure from the show was also difficult, with public struggles around alcohol and a very public family situation that played out in ways he clearly did not choose. He remains one of the most beloved figures from the show's original lineup, and his absence changed the tone of the panel in ways that were immediately noticeable. The next story in our countdown involves a judge whose exit from the show was considerably more dramatic and considerably more public, and who left behind a trail of controversy that the network has never fully addressed. Number 7. Gabrielle Union, Season 14, Judge. Gabrielle Union joined America's Got Talent as a judge for Season 14 in 2019 alongside Julianne Hough. She was an established actress with a long career, a strong public profile, and a presence on the panel that brought genuine energy. She and Hough were gone before Season 15. The official explanation from NBC and the production was that neither of them would be returning. What Gabrielle Union said publicly about why was something very different from a standard departure announcement. Gabrielle went on record describing what she called a toxic work environment. She described the production as a boys' club. She raised specific concerns about racist remarks that had been made on set and about the treatment of black talent on the show. She said she had made formal complaints during her time there and that those complaints had not been properly addressed. The story spread quickly and generated significant public reaction. NBC launched a review. The Screen Actors Guild investigated the situation. What ultimately came out of those processes was, by most assessments, not very much. Gabrielle received a settlement and moved on. The show continued without public accountability for the specific things she described. Her co-judge Julianne Hough was also let go in the same round, but has spoken far less publicly about the circumstances. Gabrielle Union's exit from America's Got Talent was not a tragedy in the traditional sense, but it was a moment that told a very uncomfortable story about what happens behind the scenes of a show that presents itself as a place where anyone can walk in off the street and be seen. Moving further up our countdown, we arrive at a contestant whose story is tragic in a completely different way. One defined not by controversy, but by the specific cruelty of what happened to a young man on a regular Saturday morning. Number 6. Tim Fort, the Kinetic King. Tim Fort appeared on Season 6 of America's Got Talent in 2011 under the name The Kinetic King. His act was chain reactions. He would set up enormously complex sequences of falling dominoes, tipping levers, rolling balls, collapsing cards, all connected in ways that required an almost inhuman level of patience and precision to construct. The audience loved watching the chain reactions go, and they loved watching Tim's face as they did. because he clearly loved it just as much as they did. He made it to the quarterfinals, was eliminated, came back as a wild card for the semifinals, and left behind an audience that genuinely cared about him. In 2016, 5 years after his appearance on the show, Tim Fort suffered a series of strokes. He died that same year at the age of 51. He was not old or at a stage of his life where death felt like something that was anywhere close to arriving. He was in his early 50s, the kind of age where most people are thinking about the second half of what they want to do, not the end of what they have done. The chain reaction man who had made complicated things move in beautiful sequences was gone before anyone expected him to be. His appearances on the show exist as a record of someone genuinely talented and genuinely joyful doing something he loved. That is a better legacy than most people leave. The entry just ahead of him in our countdown involves a much younger person whose story became a warning about what can happen when a person is struggling and the people around them cannot find a way to reach them in time. Number 5. Skilyr Hicks, Season 8 contestant. Skilyr Hicks was 14 years old when she walked onto the America's Got Talent stage for Season 8 in 2013. She played guitar and sang an original song. She told the judges she had written the song after her father passed away. She was a teenager dealing with grief through music, and the combination of her age, her talent, and the specificity of what she was carrying came through in every second of her performance. All 4 judges voted yes. She made it through the audition rounds before being eliminated in the Vegas round before the live shows. After the show, Skilyr released an album. She was still just a teenager. The years that followed her AGT appearance were difficult in ways that are hard to know from the outside. But the picture that emerges from what was reported is one of a young person who struggled with things the show could not have prepared her for. In December 2021, Skilyr Hicks was found dead at the age of 23 of a suspected drug overdose. She was 9 years removed from the 14-year-old who had stood on that stage and sung something she had written for her dead father. She had lived an entire difficult chapter in those 9 years, and nobody watching her audition in 2013 would have seen this coming. The audience that cheered her at 14 did not get to know what happened to her at 23, and that gap is its own kind of grief. The next person in our countdown is someone who made a connection with the audience that went far beyond talent competition television, and whose departure from the show was the beginning of a story that ended in the most devastating way possible. Number 4. Scott Alexander, Season 6 Magician. Scott Alexander appeared in Season 6 of America's Got Talent in 2011 as a magician. His signature trick involved making his wife Jenny appear from thin air, which the judges loved and the audience genuinely enjoyed because the warmth between Scott and Jenny was real and visible. He made it to the quarterfinals before being eliminated. After the show, he kept performing. He built a career doing magic on cruise ships and at various venues, staying active and working consistently in the years following his AGT appearance. He even appeared on Penn and Teller Fool Us in its second season, which is an indicator of the respect his peers had for his craft. In February 2023, his wife Jenny announced on Instagram that Scott had passed away. He had suffered a stroke while performing magic on a cruise ship and died on February 5th at the age of 52. The man who had spent his career making things appear from nowhere was gone in a moment that nobody saw coming, doing the thing he loved in the middle of a performance. Jenny's announcement was emotional and heartbreaking and came as a shock to the AGT community that had followed Scott and admired the act he and his wife had built together. He was 52. He was still performing. He died working, which is both a terrible thing and in its way a reflection of how fully he had committed himself to the craft he had chosen. Moving into the top 3 of our countdown, we arrive at the story that most people who follow AGT remember most clearly. Not because it ended the way so many entries on this list do, but because of how the show handled it, and because of what this person said when she stood in front of the judges. Number 3. Nightbird, Season 16. Golden Buzzer winner. Jane Marchevsky walked onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2021 under the name Nightbird. She was 30 years old. She sang an original song she had written called It's Okay. Before she sang, she told the judges something that quietened the room completely. She had cancer in her lungs, in her spine, and in her liver. She had a 2% chance of survival. And then she said something that became one of the most shared quotes to ever come out of the show. 2% is not zero. 2% is something, and I wish people knew how amazing it is. She sang her song. Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer. The song went to number 1 on iTunes the same day. Nightbird had wanted to keep competing, but by August 2021, just weeks later, she announced she was withdrawing from the competition because her cancer was demanding all of her energy and attention. The show brought her back via video during the live quarterfinals so she could give an update and feel connected to the audience that had fallen in love with her. Simon Cowell said in an interview that he believed she could have won the whole competition if her health had allowed her to stay. She died on February 19, 2022, at the age of 31. Her posthumous album, titled It's Okay after the song she sang when the world first heard her voice, was released in February 2023. Another album followed in 2025. The music kept coming even after she was gone. That is what happens when someone makes something real. Our countdown is almost at the top, and the next 2 entries are different from everything else on this list. Number 2 involves a young man who never even got to see his own audition air on television. Number 2, Brandon Rogers, Season 12 contestant. Brandon Rogers was a 29-year-old physician from Virginia. He was a doctor by day and had a genuine gift for singing that he had been developing alongside his medical career. He auditioned for America's Got Talent Season 12 with a performance of Stevie Wonder's Ribbon in the Sky, and the judges were moved. He had been recognized by Boys II Men for his talent. He had a warmth on stage that was immediately compelling. The future felt wide open for him. On June 10, 2017, Brandon Rogers was in a car in Maryland. The vehicle veered off the road and crashed into a tree. Brandon died in the passenger seat. He was 29 years old. His AGT audition had not yet aired. Producers contacted his family and, with their permission, broadcast his performance anyway, so that the audience could see what he had done. Millions of people watched a man perform on national television, knowing, as they watched, that the person on screen was already gone. It is one of the most unusual and heartbreaking experiences that television has ever accidentally created. The investigation found no evidence of drugs or alcohol being involved. Brandon Rogers died in a random accident before the world even got the chance to know his name. If that story left you holding your breath, our number 1 entry will not make it easier. This is the one that the show's production team, the judges, and millions of viewers struggled with the most, and still do. Number 1, Grandma Lee, Season 4 finalist. Frances Lee Strong, better known as Grandma Lee, appeared on America's Got Talent in 2009 during Season 4. She was 83 years old. She was a stand-up comedian whose material was sharp, saucy, and completely self-aware. She told jokes about divorce, about casinos, about wanting to be cremated at a Krispy Kreme. She had no interest in being sweet and grandmotherly in the way audiences might have expected from a woman her age. She was funny in the way that only someone who had been alive for a very long time and had stopped caring what anyone thought could be funny. The judges loved her. The audience loved her. She made it all the way to the top 10 finalists before being eliminated just short of the finale. Grandma Lee became one of the most beloved figures to ever appear on the show. She was not a singer, or a dancer, or a magician. She was an old woman with something real to say, and the confidence to say it in front of millions of people. She passed away in 2020, approximately 6 months after falling and breaking her hip. Which of these 10 stories hit you the hardest? And is there someone from AGT history we missed who deserves to be remembered? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.